Tax returns can be filed two ways, electronically and through the mail. We will discuss both methods in this session. However, we will first discuss how to complete the form before it is filed. You must perform final calculations in order to determine the refunds or taxes owed. Where do you file a tax return? It depends upon the state in which the taxpayer lives. Since most of the returns you file will likely be in the same state, I suggest you look up your state's mailing address for filing returns on the IRS website or in the 1040 instructions pamphlet. For efficiency's sake, it's not a bad idea to print up several mailing labels before the tax season even begins. Once the forms are completed and the return has been signed by you and the taxpayer, you're ready to submit the return. The IRS prefers that returns be electronically filed. For this reason, most paper preparers apply for electronic filing status before the season begins. However, paper forms are still submitted regularly to the IRS. Just as e-filing speeds up the processing of a tax return over filing by mail, so too is direct deposit of the refund faster than waiting for a check from the Department of the Treasury. You can select direct deposit and identify the account for deposit by completing the bank identification information on Form 1040. You will need to obtain the routing and account numbers for the client's bank account in order to establish a direct deposit transaction. The best way to do so is with a canceled check or deposit slip. The routing and account numbers are located on the bottom of each. The number of digits in an actual bank account number can vary, but there is a maximum of 13 available digits on the check. Routing numbers, on the other hand, are always 9 digits and are always listed first in the series of numbers on the bottom strip of the check. The routing number is separated from the account number by a symbol that looks like a short vertical bar followed by 2 vertically aligned dots. Some taxpayers, however, still prefer things the old-fashioned way. If a taxpayer does not wish to have his refund direct deposited, you do nothing, and the refund check will be sent to the mailing address indicated at the top of the tax return. As a tax preparer, you will sometimes find it necessary to check on the status of a client's refund. Many tax software programs have automatic functions that can assist in this action. It is also possible to click on the IRS website's Where's My Refund link. To do so, you will need to know the client's Social Security number, filing status, and refund amount. I would recommend waiting at least 28 days before checking a refund status. Of course, many times the taxpayer is underpaid his tax liability, either because he did not have enough withheld from his paycheck or because his estimated tax payments were too small. Good tax planning would ensure the difference between these two numbers is not too great. I would say that the difference shouldn't be more than $1,000 either way.
If the taxpayer owes taxes, those payments can be made several ways. The payment can be made by check or by credit card. Taxpayers are also allowed to pay taxes owed using American Express, Discover Card, MasterCard, or Visa credit cards over the phone or internet using one of several authorized payment providers whose contact information can be found in your book.
The taxpayer will be charged a convenience fee based on a percentage of the payment amount. The taxpayer will be told what that fee is during the transaction, and the taxpayer will have the option of continuing or canceling the transaction. A transaction confirmation number will also be provided to the taxpayer, which should be entered in the upper left-hand corner of page 1 of Form 1040. There are also 2 electronic payment formats available to taxpayers with unpaid balances. The first is direct debit payment. Taxpayers can authorize direct debit payments over the internet. Balances due on a tax return can be handled in this manner, as can business tax and estimated tax payments. In order to make direct debit payments, the taxpayer must be enrolled in the IRS Electronic Federal Tax Payment System program at www.eftps.gov. There is no cost to the taxpayer for participating in this program. E-filers who have registered in the Electronic Federal Tax Payment System program can likewise authorize withdrawals via electronic funds transfers from their checking or savings accounts. Payments can be selected for any future date up to and including the return due date. If the taxpayer cannot pay the full amount of taxes owed, he can ask to make monthly installment payments for a full or partial amount up to $10,000. Taxpayer may automatically take up to 36 months to pay the full amount. However, the taxpayer will be charged interest and possibly a late payment penalty if the tax is not paid by the return due date. To ask for an installment agreement, the taxpayer can apply online or use Form 9465. If the taxpayer uses Form 9465, he can expect a response within 30 days unless he files after March 31st, in which case it may take longer. Obviously, to limit interest and penalties, your client should pay as much of the tax as possible at the time the return is filed. In reality, it's better to send a return in by the due date without any money than it is to hold the return until the taxpayer has part or all of the funds. Once the IRS receives the return, they will send the taxpayer a reply, which will include a request for the balance plus any penalties, and a list of payment alternatives for the taxpayer to consider. Of course, one of the options will include installment payments. Because of the high costs associated with installment payments, the taxpayer should only consider it as a last resort. Less costly alternatives include bank loans or credit card payments.